Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Calhoun's. Football season is almost here, and you should make Calhoun's a part of yours. Order up a Feed 5 or Feed 10 family pack for your outdoor tailgate or indoor viewing party. Ribs or barbecue, the great sides. I mean, you can get everything you want at Calhoun's. You get it in the box. Even napkins, utensils, you name it, they put it all in here. It's spectacular, the Feed 5 or Feed 10 party pack, or Feed 5, Feed 10 family pack. They also have party platters. So they've got all kinds of options that you can take Calhoun's to your tailgate or to your home. The taste of Tennessee, Calhoun's. All right, I want to talk about the offensive line, and there are the guys who are competing at the moment. Calvert, Garvin, Johnson, Kennedy, Locklear, Morris, Smith, Tatum, Wright. Got their positions down there, but sort of that's kind of ballparky because they moved some of those guys around. Jameer Johnson spent most of his time last year, spent all of his time at guard. Now he's playing tackle some so far this fall camp. Ryan Johnson was a center last year, of course, when Kennedy went down. Could be a guard this year as well as backup center. And then you got Trey Smith, who was a guard his freshman year when he was really, really good. Struggled at times as a sophomore at tackle, but he was good. He just wasn't as dominating as maybe the hype train got a little too crazy after that freshman year. But they're moving him back to left guard if he plays. He still hasn't been cleared yet. But let's take a look at last year's starts. Now, that this was interesting. If you can read that, it's the only way I could type it and get it on the screen. That's game by game, who started where. Trey Smith's starts are in blue over on left tackle because he's still a question mark. Drew Richmond, you talking about an overlooked storyline? Nobody misses Drew Richmond. I think the football team might. It'll be interesting to see what he does at USC this year after transferring. Started all 12 games last year at right tackle. I think you could use him with that kind of experience this year. And then Niehaus started 6 games at right guard last year. But you see, Johnson was pretty steady at center. The other Johnson, steady at left guard last year. So now you're shifting things around a bit. Gentlemen, when this thing shakes out, what are you expecting to see along that offensive line?
I think for me, I think the guy that people aren't talking about enough is Kayron Calvert. Had a really strong offseason. He's a big body, and I think Pruitt has maybe a subconscious bias toward just the heavier guys, the bigger guys. He wants that beef. And so, yeah, the Trey Smith question is looming. A lot of attention on, okay, Darnell Wright, can he unseat Marcus Tatum? Because I think Tatum's going to be your day one starter at right tackle. Wanye, locked in, I think, at left tackle. But I'm telling you, Kennedy coming back, but Calvert, I think, is a guy that really could surprise some people this year as a guy that really can make a big impact that people aren't really paying that much attention to.
Jameer Johnson might be another one of those. He's a guy that he started a lot, played a lot, didn't get a lot of attention, and he's also one of the few on the team that could play guard and tackle, which I think makes him more valuable. But I think this offensive line is going to be better. How much better, it's hard to say. They do return over 60 starts compared to the defensive line, which returns about 2. So that should help them. So while I think they're going to be better, how much better remains to be seen.
I like Jameer. My question is he big enough? He looks like an edge rusher sometimes. He probably how heavy he actually is an unknown question at this point.
That's why I think the unknown can continue to be a part of this conversation, depending on Trey Smith's status. If Trey Smith plays, then Trey Smith's there at left guard, so you probably have that spot locked in.
Yep.
Calvert, I would say that's probably right, locked in at right guard. So then Brandon Kennedy at center, you might have your interior set, but what if Trey doesn't play? Then you're trying to move some guys around still. And then what happens at right tackle if, let's say Tatum's a starter, he's your senior day one, does he hold on to that spot or does Darnell Wright take it at some point? So this conversation of who plays where could continue on. That's before I get into what if somebody gets injured.
You also wonder how much last year you saw these guys who were locked in last year. It wasn't like they were constantly grasping at straws all year. They locked in guys, and then you had some injuries that changed some things. But they found their 5, and for the most part, stuck with most of those guys. How much of that do you think carries over at all? Because you've had another year in the weight program, so some guys have gotten better. Some guys have gotten bigger. You brought in some new bodies. Wanye Morris immediately is going to jump to the front of the line at left tackle. But you've got your offensive line coach back. You've got the head coach back. How much freedom is Jim Chaney going to have to say, yeah, I wasn't here last year, so I don't care that he did play. He's not my guy. We're going here. I think that's interesting. We don't know the answer to that. There's no way to know that answer, but I think it's interesting. Is last year just that forgotten because Chaney's new?
I think so. I think zero carryover from last year. I think you look at the 5 that started that last game of the season. I don't think any of those guys are probably going to start day one, and
Well,
maybe
Tatum
Tatum.
might.
Maybe Tatum.
Yeah.
We'll see. There's still a lot to be said there. But I think, too, I asked Pruitt last night, where's your offensive line at? And he said, and I quote, nowhere close to finding his 5. And I was pretty intrigued because I think we're talking here, we feel like we kind of know who the 5 is, and he's out there every day, and he says they're nowhere close. And maybe that's, talking to inspire competition. But it's interesting that, he has kind of said, well, we're still seeing we got 10, 11 guys, and we'll see how that shakes out.
Well, they do continue to bounce guys around out there a little bit. All right. Very good. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 5 most overlooked storylines going into the 2019 season. Bob, you've been using your cough drop this segment. Hopefully you
Yes,
can
sir.
talk in the next segment, and because you're up
get
next.
the paddles ready.
All right, we'll get the paddles ready. All right, come on back.